I remember the trusted girl in the tower the world believes it knows, Rapunzel. The song from childhood, the harmless dreamer with golden hair. I accuse that image of concealing something deliberately erased. I recast her as functional, dangerous, and feared, not misunderstood. I promise this truth leads to real historical and human consequence, not symbolism. I will not explain yet. For now, I only establish the inversion. To find what has been lost, I begin with the innocence you were taught to love, and I expose the trap beneath it. Remember the Rapunzel you believed in as a child, the innocent girl in a tower. That familiar image conceals something deliberately erased. When I read the oldest written versions, I find no helpless girl waiting to be saved. The earliest texts do not offer rescue as their focus. Instead, they present the girl in the tower as bait. Her song drifts from the window, drawing the prince through the forest past every warning until he cannot stay away. The text records his compulsion. He had no peace until he had seen her. The tower is not just a barrier, it is a stage, and Rapunzel's voice is the bait. The famous command, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, is not an invitation for rescue. It is the final step in a trap. Her braid becomes a living rope, strong enough to pull an intruder up from the ground and into the snare. Each time the prince climbs, he trespasses further. Each time, Rapunzel makes the ascent possible. The Grimm manuscript does not suggest innocence. It details a mechanism. The girl's hair is not a symbol of beauty, but a tool of access. The tower's single window offers one way in and one way out. The prince's fate is sealed the moment he hears her voice. The story's machinery is exposed. The girl sings, the prince climbs, the trap is sprung. The innocence you were taught to love is a mask. Beneath it lies a design built for capture, not rescue. This is not the story you learned in school. This is the evidence that was erased. Across medieval Europe, I find the warning was never hidden in a single story. It appeared everywhere, etched into the margins of manuscripts, carved into woodcuts, painted on chapel walls, always the same figure, a woman at the edge of society, her hair unbound, her presence a signal of risk. Loose hair was not a mark of beauty. In the iconography of the time, it marked something broken, social ties cut, boundaries crossed. In bestiaries, sirens and temptresses are drawn with wild hair, luring men to their ruin. Marginalia from the 13th century show women with streaming locks standing at thresholds, neither inside nor out. The message was clear to any reader of the time. Unbound hair meant danger. It was a public code. The pattern stretches from the British Isles to the Black Sea. In Slavic folklore, the Rusalka, the drowned maiden with hair floating loose, waits at riverbanks to pull wanderers under. In Germanic tales, the Lorelei sings from cliffs, her hair a golden snare. Even in the earliest printed collections, these women are not misunderstood. They are liminal, both bait and boundary. The Grimm brothers did not invent the girl in the tower. They inherited her from a centuries-old catalog of warnings, each one teaching the same lesson: approach at your peril. The tower was not built for her protection. The hair was not grown for beauty. Every element served a function, shaped by a culture that understood the cost of ignoring such signs. The peril was not in the story. It was in the pattern, repeated until it became law. I remember how medieval thinkers treated hair that grows without limit as a clear warning. In that world, uncontrolled growth signaled a symptom, something that could not be contained in the body or the soul. Physicians and priests described hair that refused to be cut as a mark of imbalance. In sermons, unbound hair was likened to weeds choking a field, or to creeping mold that spreads where it is not wanted. The body was meant to obey boundaries. Hair that did not was read as spiritual disorder or possession. I do not present Rapunzel's braid as an ornament. I call it a living rope wound and ready to ensnare. The Grimm text makes it impossibly long and strong, something that grows beyond natural limits. Under that logic, the braid is not a bridge for rescue, it is a mechanism of contagion. The prince who climbs it does not not reach for beauty. He crosses a forbidden threshold and touches something that risked carrying him into another world. The danger is not only in the girl, but in the hair itself. It is a symptom that demands isolation, a threat that must be kept under containment. The body has failed to keep its borders. In that frame, the tower is not a prison. It is a necessary response. I will be direct. The tower stands apart not as a prison, but as an instrument of public health. In medieval Europe, architecture was often the first line of defense against what could not be cured or cleansed. Anchor holds, sealed cells built into church walls, housed anchoresses who lived in permanent seclusion. These were not sanctuaries. They were designed to contain danger, whether spiritual, moral, or imagined. The anchorite cell had 3 windows, one for food, one for confession, one for the Eucharist. The rest was stone, impenetrable, unyielding. Records from England in the 14th century count hundreds of such cells, their inhabitants walled in for life, their only contact with the world filtered through narrow slits. Elsewhere, the threat was physical. Venice constructed its first lazaretto in 1423, an island fortress where suspected plague victims waited out their fate in isolation. Ragusa, now Dubrovnik, used towers on the city edge to hold travelers for 30 days, the original quarantine. These structures were not built to punish the individual inside. They were built to protect the community outside. The tower in the Rapunzel tale follows this logic. A single room high above the ground with one window and no door. The girl is not sheltered, she's contained. The walls do not keep her safe, they keep her from spreading what she carries. This is not the architecture of mercy, it is the architecture of necessary isolation, enforced for the greater good. I say this plainly, the tower's purpose was never mercy. Once the boundary was crossed, the warden enforced the cost. I read the grim manuscript. Mother Gothel waits, patient, for the moment of trespass. She is not a sentimental guardian, she is the warden. When the prince climbs Rapunzel's braid and enters the cell, he violates the quarantine. The punishment is immediate and physical. There is no trial, no plea for forgiveness, only consequence. Gothel severs the braid, casting Rapunzel into exile, and she waits for the prince to return. When he comes, expecting the lure, he finds only the warden's trap. Gothel pushes him from the window. He falls into the bramble below, the thorns drive into his eyes. The text spares no detail, the thorns do not merely scratch, they blind. He wanders sightless through wastelands, living on roots and grass. This is not a metaphor. In the tale's logic, blindness is the price of forbidden entry. The thorns are not random, they are the mechanism of penalty as recognizable to medieval audiences as the stocks or the gallows. The boundary is enforced not by law, but by the body itself. The story leaves no doubt trespass is paid for in flesh and vision. I do not accept that the story became harmless by accident. Each change was a decision by editors and publishers who understood the power of omission. In the early 19th century, the Grimm brothers began the process, softening language but leaving the core wounds intact. By the time Edgar Taylor published his English translation in 1823, the evidence of contamination, the pregnancy, and the twins was gone. The prince's blinding became a minor injury. The exile, a gentle wandering. Victorian editors, facing the demands of an industrialized childhood, turned the tale into a lesson in sentiment, not survival. Danger vanished, replaced by longing and purity. The transformation was not a natural evolution. It was a calculated response to market pressures. Safe stories sold better, and so the warnings were buried. I view Disney's Tangled as the completion of that erasure. Pregnancy, blinding, and exile were swept away and replaced by agency, humor, and innocence. The film's commercial success, over $500 million at the box office, depended on forgetting what the story was built to prevent. What began as a warning was sold as a fantasy. The machinery of containment was dismantled, but the risk remained hidden behind a smiling face. The danger was not defeated, it was made invisible. Today, the image remains, but the warning is gone. Sanitized stories sell innocence, not caution, and the original danger is forgotten, not defeated. Erasure does not protect us, it only blinds us to what once threatened. The story's shadow lives on, waiting for memory to fail again.